Hello and welcome to the SME Data Podcast. We are lucky today to be joined by Avinash, founder and CEO of Offspring. Hi Avinash, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about
Sure.
Offspring?
Hi. Really a pleasure to be here, Helen. Offspring is a social
Thank
saving
you.
tool. It helps families and communities save more effectively for themselves and for experiences that they want to give people within the community. We are a startup. We've been going for about 3 years now, and we have worked extensively using various parts of the data infrastructure that is available to us to make improved and better decisions.
Great, thank you for that. So I'd love to just ask you some questions about your data journey, just to find out how your business is using data, just to help other business leaders out there in a similar situation that might be thinking, how can we
Sure.
start? So to hear more about your journey, just tell me what sort of started Offspring thinking about how can we make better use of our data?
So if you think about Offspring, it's a tool that brings people together to, as you quite rightly said, saving using cash saving for any experiences. But in order to be able to understand and orchestrate these savings, we need to understand how people are setting up goals, what goals they're setting up, and how people are contributing towards that. Um, the reason we need to understand that is that's to help people to make it easier for people to actually save. So the very basis of the tool that we've created is one that sits on the most optimal use of data and data insights that we can generate. So when we look at data and when we look at how Offspring came about, it's effectively a tool that gathers a lot of data and insights, which we can then play back and make people's lives more easy.
Great. So what would you say is the biggest motivator for doing that? Is it customer service, or what were you looking to improve?
So we look at the use of data in as three legs to a stool, if you like. So the one of the more important ones that you just touched on is customer service. I shouldn't say more important because that'll sort of make the stool a bit wonky. In reality, what we look to do is understand how customers use the tool and how we can engage with customers to help make their experience and their use of Offspring more easy. So that's the customer service element. An equally important element is understanding how customers use the product so that we can make improvements to the existing product and also identify what additional features we can build into the product. And that's all driven by customer data in the broadest sense. And the third reason we use data is to help us identify what are the key metrics that will help us improve our profitability. And we inform those metrics through various sources of data that we have within the business.
Okay. And what would you say have been sort of your biggest learnings so far about what to do and what not to do?
I think the biggest challenge in trying to understand what the most important metrics are that you need to measure is to be really focused around the things that really matter to your customers and to your business. We're all swimming in vast pools of data. We just don't necessarily understand it or recognize that we're in those pools. So for us, the biggest challenge was identifying. We use 5 metrics, but identifying those 5 metrics, which are the most important ones that we should focus on. The challenge is getting yourself and your team members aligned to those chosen metrics that you have, and then focus on that.
Okay. And how did you do that, Avinash?
So I guess it's a combination of understanding what it is that you're trying to do with your business. Who are you trying to serve? I think that's important to understand and be clear about it. And thirdly, work with the rest of your team, because you may think something is important, but actually there are 4 or 5 other key metrics that the rest of your team will need to understand as well in order for them to improve whatever they're doing, but also for you to measure yourself and your business against. So it's really important to get a wide group of people thinking and looking at how you create the most important metrics that you measure.
Hmm. Yeah, so tech is obviously a part of that, but the culture is the other part to get everyone on board with what you're trying to
That's
achieve
absolutely right. Yeah.
and get that sort of single source of truth that everyone aspires to. So tell us about the tools that helped you to make that happen.
So what we look at when we are when a customer goes through a journey or uses Offspring is a set of customer metrics for which we use feedback loops. You have the equivalent of the trust pilots and the other feedback loops. We don't particularly use Trustpilot, but we use equivalent around a much more informal way of using customer feedback through our platform, where customers can engage with
Hmm.
us. So I think that's a very important part of being able
Hmm.
to measure it, measure customer feedback.
Hmm.
The second
Hmm.
visualization tool is the one that is Power BI, and then the rest are inputs into that.
Okay. And we may have covered a little bit of this before, but I'd just be interested to hear the sort of challenges you've had, or what would you say is the main challenge along the road? Because you've done a great thing by trying to get visibility so you know your business numbers. You've got the team on board with that, so it gives you a clear way forward and everyone's on the same page. What would you say has been the biggest thing to overcome in getting to that place?
I think the biggest thing has been about identifying which are the measures that we really should
Hmm.
focus on. There's a difference between
Hmm.
measures that matter and measures that people just like to have. Call them vanity metrics, call them others. Um, um, I
Hmm.
think the most important thing is to identify which are the 3, 4, 5 things that you will actually focus on, and work
Hmm.
to work on improving, because that helps the business going forward. And that has to be um, a, a, a set of measures that people in your organization agree to.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing that. And maybe sort of an example of how when you've taken some data from the business and that's informed a business decision. Can you maybe sort of walk us through an example of that, of where you've taken information from some of the tools you've spoken about, and then you've made a change because of what that data is telling
So
you?
the biggest change we set about make happen was a significant improvement to our product, and that was informed by
Hmm.
um, the use through customer feedback, but also understanding how
Hmm.
customers were setting about using Offspring, and the challenges that they faced in setting up Offspring and using it. So the data that we got from understanding how people were going through the journey, plus the direct feedback we got from customers, helped us actually improve the product and make it look like what it does today. So I think that was one of the biggest
Hmm.
changes that we embarked on within the organization, and was informed directly
Mm.
by both hard data, if you like, numbers oriented data, but also customer feedback and
Yeah,
the qualitative side.
yeah. And is there any instances where gut feel takes over, or whether you sort of feel that being led by the data is more important? Sort of how does that balance work for you?
So I think gut feel is extremely important in any decisions you make. However, gut feel needs to
Hmm.
be supported by what the data is showing you, because your gut feel may be at odds with the data. So it's important to understand how the two play together. For me, if
Hmm.
I have a gut feel, I'll look for whether the data supports my gut feel or not, or if I and if it doesn't, then I will go with where the data is taking us.
Hmm. Great. Okay. And for lots of other business leaders out there that are sort of starting to think, actually, we should be making more better use of our data, but just where do we start? What would be sort of a good tip from yourself as to from your experience and what you've learned, where would you now advise those people to make a
So I think
start?
the first thing to say is every business has got lots of data, um, and so the
Hmm.
important thing is to understand what are the key measures you want to track against, and spend a good amount of time with yourself, with your team, to be able to identify what those 4 or 5 metrics are. For every business, those metrics will be different. And it's important to understand what those 4 or 5 metrics are. And it's important to stick to those because what we do see, or I have seen in other businesses, is that there's every new CEO or every individual with running a big team wants to have their own individual sets of data, and then they will engage in activity that drives more data to be fed back from the systems that they use. And the reality is that's good to do, but if the metrics you changes with every single new team leader or otherwise, it then causes a lot of instability in the business. So it's important to measure, to identify those core set of data points that you want and metrics that you want to track. And then everything else goes from those 4 or 5, so that even if there's management change or the teams are reshaped, then the business always has, or the individuals working in the business always have those few metrics that they can track against. And that's the most important thing to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And to make sure it's an ongoing part of the business. It's not just a one project done in isolation and everyone's carrying on. It's there to be sort of guiding.
That's absolutely right. And you may start with one set of metrics, and in a couple of years' time or 4 years' time, your business model might change. So you might need to look at slightly different metrics on that basis. If you can adapt and evolve, but still have a small set of metrics that everybody can stand behind, then I think that's the best thing for the business to focus on.
Cool. And you touched on sort of vanity metrics. I'd just like to sort of explore that a little bit more in terms of what journey did you go on to make sure that you got the right metrics for your business? And because obviously, vanity metrics can get in the way of that, and that's an important point you made.
I think the important thing is, Facebook likes or LinkedIn likes don't actually generate revenue for you. So I think that for us, the way we look at it is the metrics that are important to us are, given our business, we are trying to help people save. So the number of people, number of times people are making contributions is a very important metric for us. So we really focus on, if you're trying to save, what are the things that will contribute towards that savings? So that's a key metric for us. We look at how quickly and easily it is for people to sign on and use our app, because the quicker we get them in, the more likely they are to use it. And therefore, we focus a lot on those key metrics that are associated with onboarding and servicing within that context. And the third lot of metrics that we measure are cash flow and profitability, because that's a very important part of a sustainable business. So if you can get those 3 right, and that's right for our business, if we can get those 3 right, then that is those are the set of measures that we are most focused on.
And that helps unite the team and unite the business.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So it's great to hear about you as a young and ambitious business and how you are, building yourselves for future success by making sure you're harnessing that information and making change driven on it for the better. What opportunities do you see for the future and the data that you hold, and where you want to go with it?
So I often think about the way we interact with customers as the core way of thinking about how data can be used and what opportunities there are. So for me, it would be really great if we could understand what people are saving for and align that with the things that people could then go on to buy. So for me, it's about the data is about understanding customer behavior and making that customer behavior something that we can act upon, obviously with customer consent. So the real opportunity for us is around trying to you better understand customer behavior and link that to the things that they could do on the back of the actions they're taking with Offspring. I think the opportunity for data going forward is very much around being able to make better predictions based on the insights that you're drawing from the data. So people call it artificial intelligence, people call it predictive analytics. There's a whole bunch of different phrases that people use, but fundamentally, if you can start to better understand how customers are behaving and what they're likely to do on the back of that behavior, you're able to be in a much better place to then offer them a range of things that would be relevant to them. And those customers could be individual customers or businesses. So I think that's the great opportunity for organizations in the future. And then at its at a very basic level, the opportunity around understanding how your business uses data is important, because you are then able to understand how better to engage your internal workforce in order to help you focus on the things that customers need most. So if you can combine those two, then I think that's really great.
It sounds like you've got an exciting future ahead, Avinash. Thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you very much for your time.